of Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial postgame show of Houston Cougars men's basketball and Houston Cougars football. Let's Rage Coogs, sponsored by the Saxenian Family. I am Kris Gardner. Andy Yanez is on the road. Literally, I think he is on the way to his house to join us at some point during this show. But joining me is Dunlap. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, man. Houston got a dominated win tonight. It's almost Friday, so I'm feeling good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, man. As you touched on it, we're going to talk about the Cougs' dominating performance, 87-53 over SMU here inside Tillman's building. Jarris Walker, I just want to say this. His first shot was an air ball. But man, oh man, after that, he put on a show. What were your thoughts
Uh,
on Jarris Walker's performance? He finished with 23 and 10 at, what was it, halftime. At one point, Jarris had 18 points and SMU had 17. So he outscored the Mustangs by himself. What were your thoughts on Jarris Walker's performance? What was different in your opinion for him tonight?
for me, just his shots was going, and I said it on different shows that when he's decisive in his decision making, whether it's to make a shot, to drive, to pass, whatever it is, he normally makes a good play, makes the right play, and his shot normally falls. But tonight, as I was watching, I was literally thinking that he gets these looks every game. It's not a game that he doesn't get these looks. And I was sitting there thinking, not only does Coach Sampson sell culture, defense, rebounding, he also, I'm sure, sells offensive freedom. Because if you look at tonight, Jarris gets these shots every game. Tremont, Marcus, all these different guards. You go back to other guards within the system, you're gonna get your same touches. It's just upon you to make shots, but the opportunity is gonna be there. And then if you're hot, we're gonna run the offense to you. And so outside of the number one, number two option, Coach Sampson does run offense for specific people to get them touches. But overall, they play freely in transition. And also in half court, they just move the ball. So on any given night I was watching, like Jared actually gets these shots every game. But tonight he really had it going, and I was thinking this is why he's going to be a lottery pick because he just shows his versatility, ability to make the 3 point shot, ability to on the blow by, off the dribble, show the finish, his floater game, like semi hook shots, his ability to knock down short mid range jumper. So he really just had it going. Defensive ability, his explosive, and really everything was on display tonight for Jerry.
And it's almost like you were in the post game press conference, man, because
I was about that.
one of the things that Jarris, was asked about what was different and what's been one of his struggles, whatever, just trying to maintain. If he has a bad game, forgets about it, doesn't dwell on it, does not bring it with him in the following game. And Coach Sampson said he's mentioned about Quentin Grimes, Marcus Sasser, some of the stellar guards in Coach Sampson's tenure here at UH who have the green light. He
Yep.
said there are different shades of green. There's
Yep.
fluorescent green, Kelly green, and he said Jarris's color is greenish. So he didn't say it's fluorescent green or anything like that, but he says Jarris's green is greenish, which indicates Jarris, it's okay for you to take shots. It's okay for you to be comfortable in what you're doing on the floor. So Jarris smiled at that comment. I think he enjoyed hearing it publicly, but I'm sure he's known that Coach Sampson wants him. Jarris, take your shots. It's okay if you take your shots, but it's also required of you to play defense and rebound. Coach Sampson was glad to see Jarris get 4 offensive boards. He had 10 total. He had 23 and 10 tonight. He did everything. You touched on. He was 3 for 6 from 3 point range. He knocked down threes that we've seen him make in practice. He finally did it in games. He put
Mhm.
his total package on display tonight for everybody, and SMU was the victim of it in this 34-point win by the second-ranked Houston Cougars. But any other, we got Wanda Pope chiming in on the YouTube channel for Houston Roundball Review and La Flame as well. Any other people catch your eye in this game? Because there's a lot of folks who played well and rebounded well, especially.
Yeah. Another thing, just before we move off of Jarris, another thing I was thinking, although I mentioned he plays well, he makes decisive decisions. I think his poise is also to his to his advantage because he's so poised and he doesn't rush. Regardless if he's indecisive in his decision making, he's rarely rushing and playing fast. But other players that stuck out to me tonight really was Marcus. The way he saw the floor and moved the basketball. I think I've said it again throughout this season and almost every show that I really love his development and the way he's seeing the floor and his floor generalship. I don't know his career high in assists tonight. He had seven. I'm sure if he'd have played a full game, he could have had a double double. But the way the passes that he was making are on time, on target to where anyone could make a play, and I was really impressed with that aspect of it. He shot the ball better in the second half, and so I mean, this is what was all around games continue to develop, and like that green light I mentioned, he's one of those players that benefit. Like regardless if you're a guard or forward, you're gonna have the green light, and when it's your turn to be the guy, Coach Sampson's gonna run the offense through you, and you're gonna have that even greener light, like Coach, like you mentioned, and Coach Sampson said, it's different shades of green. And so Marcus really stuck out to me because if he can continue to see the floor and get others involved, along with being a scoring threat as he is, I think that's only going to make the team even better. It's going to open the floor for even more people because he made plays for Tremont, Tremont made plays for him, got him open shots, and so when they're moving the ball and Marcus is really making plays, I think that spreads among other people to want to make plays and move the ball as well.
And five different Cougs scored in double digits. So it was balanced scoring, which is great to see. Marcus Harris had 14 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. Juwan Roberts had 11 points and 8 rebounds. Terrence Sarsnow, for people worried about Terrence, had 10 points off the bench in 19 minutes, but he also had 6 boards. Jamal Mark had 10 points as well. Javier Francis was close to getting 10. He had 8 points. He was 4 for 4 from the floor, blocked some shots, inhaled some rebounds. I mean, went and got them rebounds. And that's what he does. I mean, Coach Sampson says that basically Javier is a natural offensive rebounder. And you could see it on display. Emmanuel Sharp played defense, didn't shoot great from three, but he had 9 rebounds. Got to be career high for him. 8 of those were defensive. He was 1 for 7 from three. So who was our man? There he is right there. Jaja, King Jaja, about to call you out. Emmanuel didn't shoot well from three, but he had 9 rebounds. So he impacted the game in other ways. That's what these guys are doing. They're learning how to impact the team performance. If their shot's not falling, rebound, defend. And Emmanuel did that. So it's a good team win. You even got minutes from Darius Bowser and Ryan Elvin in the last 4 minutes. I asked Coach Sampson, for anybody who's watching, I asked Coach Sampson about Ramon Walker because Ramon was in his warm-ups. And Coach said that Ramon was dealing with some injuries, like more than one. So that's the reason why he did not, dress up and get 80 minutes tonight. So before anyone's wondering, that's what's up with Ramon Walker. You want to speculate, that's on you. But right now he's dealing with injuries, and that's why he did not play tonight in the game versus SMU. But let's touch on it, my man. Javier Francis, 20 minutes, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 2 block shots. Your thoughts on the young man, the young big man, continuing to get better?
It's hard to keep him off the floor. It's just his impactful. I mean, the way he impacts the game, it just jumps off the screen to you. The way his length, the way he gets rebounds. I think it's sometimes I don't know what it is, but it's sometimes when he's on the floor, other teams get offensive rebounds. I don't know. I can't. I'm sure they're putting an emphasis on blocking him out. But man, the way his hands, he catches literally everything around the rim as far as when it's passed to him. Good feet, can dribble, can pivot like power dribble and finish over each shoulder. I really love his game. And there's really Coach Sampson raves about him and rightfully so. I think if he continues to develop and learn the game, because you can tell right now it's just about experience and having those experiences playing because the natural ability he has it in him. I mean, you can see the work he's putting in he look like this. I could tell um, his fatigue is going down. I could tell he's in really good shape because earlier in the season he played a lot of minutes. Times he probably would get a little tired. Right now he seems to be in really good shape, playing really well, affecting shots, blocking shots. Had 2 blocks tonight. Was rebounding the ball really well, and I think the season goes on. We play bigger teams, and just looking at Cincinnati, they're a little longer team, more athletic team. we're going to need him. I think his minutes are increasing more and more because he's having such an impact on the game. And then when you got a player like Reggie, who is basically like assistant coach slash player,
Mm-hmm.
he knows his number is still going to get called in those crunch time minutes when the game is on the line. And so that's just part of the culture. But I mean, I really love everything I'm seeing from JVA Francis. Man, he's going to be a star.
And one, I think it was in the first half, and we're being picky for JV, but he's still a young player, 19 years old. He's still learning on defense. His rotation sometimes on the high screen is not where it should be, but we made a mistake. Reggie Chaney from the sideline. See him most of you. You're supposed to be over here. You're supposed to do this. We're in this. You could see him coaching JVA during the stoppage and play. So that's another example of what Reggie provides when he's on the bench and not in the game at that particular moment. But here on Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family, I'm going to thank and recognize a couple of our sponsors for the show and anyone tuning in. Andy promised he's going to try to join us from the road or mobile or audio at some point during the show. So just be patient if you're wondering where he is and where you're not seeing his face on the screen, in addition to me and Dayon. But we're going to give a thank and shout out to Hoop and Holler, the Houston Micro Collective, and they're releasing a new shirt tomorrow. So follow them on Twitter at Hoop and Holler, HOU. And then for Star Pizza, go visit starpizza.net. And down, I'm trying to get Andy to make it happen to get some pizza delivered to us during one of these ball games, man. Pre-game, post-game show, it'd be great for me. I mean, doing good for you, maybe for conference play, conference tournament, for us to just
Yeah.
be snacking on a pizza during the during the post-game show and say, this really is good, this pizza. Thank you to Star Pizza for feeding us during this post-game show edition of Let's Rate Coos. Just a thought, just putting it out there for our guys.
Maybe let's get it right for the pregame show when it comes.
So yes, and that is in the works, and we're probably going to do pregame shows. Most likely for everybody, it's really easier to do is for road games. So we're probably going to do pregame shows in the future for Cougs road games and conference play, and definitely try to do that for the tournament. But also got to do this as well for my man Ryan at the Houston NIL. So we're going to give them a plug here as well. Houston NIL is a subscription-based name, image, and likeness model that benefits both Cougar student athletes and fans. As my screen just froze on me there. Houston NIL helps Houston athletes benefit from the new NIL rules. Athletes create original content in their own words, giving subscribers insight into their lives on and off the court. What players need is for you to subscribe. Plans start at $20 a month, and that money goes to the Houston athletes. Subscribers will get one-of-a-kind content straight from the players while also helping the Houston Cougars compete on a national stage. Subscribe at HoustonHounil.com. Go Cougs. And one more time, let's say that again. Subscribers will get one-of-a-kind content straight from the players while helping the Houston Cougars compete on a national stage. Subscribe at Hounil.com. Go Cougs. I take care of some of these hangers on here, boy, folks. See, we're getting popular. We're getting so popular now. We're getting spammed. And there he is, as promised.
Man,
Oh,
Just got home, and we can barely hear you, man. Your audio's restart your buds, whatever you got to do, Mr. Yanez. But Dan, I want to get your thoughts on this when Andy comes back and joins us. It's SMU head coach Rob Lanier's first year as head coach at the Mustangs. And he was asked, one of the questions he was asked in post game, Coach Sampson was asked, was can he recall how his first year at Houston and basically any advice that he would give Coach Lanier in his first year at SMU. And I'm not, shaming anybody if you're part of the Coug fandom in the last 4 years. Okay, it's been a fun ride, but the first year for Coach Sampson here in the program, Coach Sampson said in post game, facilities are awful. Okay, Hall Finance was a dump. The fan support was basically non-existent. The support for the administration had taken a nap until Coach Sampson was hired. So Coach said that Rob Lanier is in a better position at SMU and what he's doing now because the SMU administration is supporting him, and they have facilities that Coach Sampson did not have in his first year at Houston. And remember this: you remember when Larry Brown was at SMU? SMU was one of the marquee programs in the conference. But look at times have changed now. Now the Cougs are the marquee team in the American. So it's just amazing how things works. And of course, the Cougs are going into the Big 12. So this will be the last time SMU plays UH in a conference game in the American. Coach Sampson was also asked if there was any possibilities of scheduling SMU non-conference. Never say never, but it depends on a lot of the things that the Big 12, kind of determines for teams to schedule non-conference. So it's possible this name may not be anytime soon that the Cougs face SMU in non-conference play somewhere down the line. Andy, you with us now?
Testing audio. Do I sound clear, crisper?
Yes, sir. You sound crisp and clear. Yes, sir. So yes, go ahead and give your thoughts on everything.
Perfect.
Yep.
First, I want to put this comment on the screen by Mr. Smith. He appreciates you guys, Chris and Dayon, for continuing to carry on, and I also appreciate you guys being able to hop on, make notice, and being able to carry the show. I mean, I can't say thank you guys enough for being able to do that. I appreciate you guys as well. But top to bottom, correct me if I'm wrong. I think SMU led first. They scored first, 2-0, and then
yep.
Houston scored 28 unanswered points.
Yep.
In that game, which, goodness, that was that is absurd. That is a definition of a complete beatdown when it comes to Houston SMU. And I think I was listening to the opening segments as I was chugging along and trying to get my butt into my house. That you guys opened with. You talked about Jarvis Walker and really the strong performance he had against the Mustangs, which again, something that going back to the opening segment, you guys said when it comes to Jarvis Walker, that's something that maybe not necessarily on the show, but you'll see some noise every now and then on social media and stuff like that. People, hey, Jarvis Walker, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? And we talked about it. Kelvin Sampson in the past, he said it when it comes to freshmen, not just Jarvis Walker, Terrence Arsenault, and Emmanuel Sharp as well. There's nothing wrong with them because why, Chris? Why, Dayon? Because they're freshmen. That's what freshmen are going to do. And Jarvis Walker came out here. He had a sensational performance against the Mustangs. Come Sunday at Cincinnati on the road, it could be a complete 180. And that's not going to mean there's something wrong with Jarvis Walker. It's just going to be, it's going to mean that he's a freshman and it's going to be tough on the road. It's going to be a tough environment up in Cincinnati, which it always is. So there's not going to be any room for panic. But now, and I think it's interesting that I can't remember if it was after one of the previous post games or if it was during the Zooms, but Kelvin said, obviously he always liked to say there's not a period in anything that they do, but he started to say that he's starting to see a lot less commas with this team, which a performance like this against SMU that came into this outing winners of 3 of the last 4 after a bit of a slow start and to kind of get ran off the court like they did against SMU. I think one that just shows the performance with Houston that we've come to expect, that they're beginning to maybe consistent, not be the right word, but like Kelvin said, Chris, that's one of the questions you asked him during the Zoom about where the team is. Something Samson likes to do when it comes to breaking down the season is kind of using the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, kind of as markers for his program, and they're just continuing to improve. And I think a performance like this, you kind of get a glimpse of the full potential. And heck, Jarvis Walker did good, Terrence Arsenault did good, Marcus Sasser did good. Jamal Shedd didn't necessarily have his best performance against SMU. So just in it of that way, there's something that you show with this Houston team. They can still, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of ceiling left with this Houston Cougars team, which ranked number 2 in the nation right now. That's got to put a lot of Houston fans excited for the potential of this team, because there's still 2.5 months, and if everything goes perfect, just under 3 months of the season left for the Houston Cougars. So there's a lot of exciting times.
No question. And the second half was kind of choppy, but I mean, the lead was so huge that I think the players kind of lost focus somewhat. That's human nature. It's okay. But they They worked on things. You saw Terrence they on. Coach drew up some plays at Terrence Arsenal, man. He put Terrence on the block there a couple of times, and Terrence did work. So I think
Yeah.
it was an example of the opponent as well, but also Terrence, I trust you enough to, because he's, Andy, want to give you this, share this with everyone who's watching us on YouTube and Twitter. Coach Sampson mentioned that Terrence is getting better in practice,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the best perimeter defensive players is Malik Wilson. Malik is redshirting this year, and Coach Sampson said that for a while, Malik against Terrence was unfair. It was an unfair fight because Terrence struggled to score so much when Malik was guarding him. But Coach Sampson said, but lately, Terrence starting to get better and starting to score against Malik. So it's coming along. You're seeing Terrence getting better in practice, and you're seeing that practice performance starting to show in the games. Now, what we do this Sunday on the road against Cincinnati, we'll see. But he's improving. So, folks, keep in mind, this is the second-ranked team in the country. They went 9 deep in the first 10 minutes of tonight's game. It's hard for a freshman to come in and think about it, Deion, Andy, LaFlame, 791, Mr. Smith. Terrence is going against Jamal Shedd, Marcus Sasser, Tremont Mark in practice, and Emmanuel Sharp. Who's he going to beat? Whose minutes is he going to take right off the bat? So he's getting better going against those guys and Malik Wilson. So his future is still bright, and it's all part of the development and also waiting your turn in the program.
Yeah, I really like what I saw from Terrence tonight, and I noticed exactly what you referenced, Chris. Coach drawing up those plays to isolate him in the mid post area, letting him go one on one. And what that kind of tells me is I was kind of foreseeing the future with him and Emmanuel playing on the floor together. Emmanuel kind of being their floor spacer, someone who also has the ability to score, but Terrence being someone who you can run your offense through in that mid post area and can create for himself. More importantly, get a bucket. And so I love what I saw from him. He was confident and aggressive in his when he was driving or making his mid range shot. And so I really like what I've seen from Terrence. I mean, he started the season in the role that Emmanuel Sharp is, being that first guard off the bench. And like Coach Sampson does, he rewards players who play good in practice, but more than that, he gives the team what they need. And at the time when he made the change, I think the team needed better shooting from three, and Emmanuel provides that. But like any given game, Emmanuel get foul trouble, Tremont, anybody can get in foul trouble. Anything could happen, and his number can call, and he could be ready, and he could produce like we saw him do earlier in this season. So I really like what I saw, particularly from him tonight, and the way that he drove in attack when he had those one-on-one isolation situations. Got a few rebounds and made a couple plays as well, knocked down three ball, and so the sky's the limit for Terrence as well. I think he has trust in the coaching staff, like he mentioned, like we mentioned in previous shows, and so definitely got to stay the course with Terrence. But he definitely had a good showing tonight. At the time, his time on the floor.
And I'm going to tie this into our sponsor segment from Houston NIL, because after this, it all ties together. As the Cougs move to the Big 12, Houston will be competing with national players in basketball like Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, and more. Those schools have fans that have built huge NIL groups to get their athletes name, image, and likeness compensation. That gives them a huge advantage over where NIL is still in its infancy. But you guys can help Cougar athletes by getting involved. Go to hounil.com to subscribe to player-created content like essays, videos, podcasts, and get access to private events with players. Players are compensated for creating content, and fans get an inside look at their lives. Plans start at $20 a month, and that money helps the Cougars retain players. One more time, plans start at $20 a month. That money helps the Cougars retain players to stay at the top in basketball and to build momentum in football. hounil.com. Subscribers get one-of-a-kind content straight from Cougar athletes. Subscribe today. hounil.com. Go Cougs. And it ties in because think about this. You never know what the future holds. But next year, starting wings or a combination of at some point on the floor during games. Terrence Arsenault, Jamon Mark, Emmanuel Sharp. 6'4", 6'6", 6'7", and Jamal Shed, because Jamal's taking a rest. Okay, at some point, that could be, and then you toss in front court help. Juwan Roberts should still be here, and then youngsters as well. But the length, those guys can feed. Malik Wilson, another guard, 6'1", athlete, and we've heard he's one of the best defenders on the team right now. So he's learning the culture of the program this year. It's hard to maintain objectivity as a Houston alum, an old head alum, and this season's not over. But man, oh man, I'm looking so forward to Big 12 basketball. The Cougs in it next year. I'm sorry about that, and I know the goal this season is to win the championship. Final Four is in Houston in a few months, and I got approved good news today that I'll be covering the Final Four, men's and women's Final Four in Dallas and in Houston. So get Andy's approval. Get that as well. Dan, you come down here too. We're going to do shows on the Final Four here in H-Town and help Let's Rage Coogs go national, global, whatever is in store for us going forward.
Yes, sir. And of course, we also want to give a shout out to our other sponsors, Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, who they're going to be, obviously, they're known for their Star Pizza commercials with the Anthony Jones that we've played on the show. But tomorrow they're going to be releasing a new shirt. So be sure to be on the lookout on their social media account on Twitter. Personally, with their giveaway, they have a GOAT Samson t-shirt that they already unveiled. They're going to be giving away tomorrow. And of course, Hoop and Holler, like I mentioned, they are best known for their commercials with Star Pizza, who is our third sponsor for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, with various locations across the Houston area. Please be sure to visit starpizza.net to not only to check their menu, but even order online and pick up. That way you don't have to wait, because at the end of the day, if you're in the mood for pizza, I know you're not in the mood to wait because you want to eat it as soon as possible. And going back to what you said, Chris, when it comes to first, congratulations for being able to get approved for your credential. When it comes to covering the Final Four, both the men's and women's basketball is exciting at times. And like you mentioned, going to whatever the future holds for Let's Reach Coogs and our program, it's exciting in that moment. And hopefully there is one of the teams that we are covering that's also playing that weekend when it comes to the first weekend in April. But be that as it may, we'll leave it down the line. But when I heard you list off the lineups: Emmanuel Sharp, Jamal Shea, Jamon Mark, Terrence Arsenault, Malik Wilson, that's going to be heading into the first year in the Big 12. That's not even counting a few of the new incoming names that are going to be coming in next year. And then you think back, I'm going to go into tangent, but you think back to yesterday, or I guess we're recording this on Thursday, so on Wednesday, gotta make sure I put the name in there. Wednesday, the day before we're recording this, and you look at a matchup like TCU and Baylor, and not just that, it was Iowa State and Oklahoma as well. There's every game that you think about it, like Baylor, they're going to a conference. Baylor's still a really, really good team. And you're going to add Houston to the mix with all of those teams. We saw that UCF, they're coming too. They have talent too. And you're going to see Cincinnati this upcoming Sunday. I know it's too far to look ahead, but we're kind of on the outside, so we can kind of do that from an outside perspective. Dang, it's going to be a gauntlet every conference game next year, and it's going to be exciting to watch that.
No doubt, and Dan, I'll add your thoughts in a second, but in Cincinnati, their recruiting class, I forgot the young man's name. He's got a kind of unique name. It's like one of the top players in his class,
Mm-hmm.
So the Bearcats are upgrading their recruiting for the Big 12 as well. Man, it's just the best basketball conference in college will get better, and the Cougs will be part of it. And of course, that's going to mean a few more losses in conference play, but so what? Because you go out to the tournament, it's going to be a lot of fun, great competition, night in, night out. Iron sharpens iron. That's what I said. That's like that.
And every game is going to be a quad one game.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, speaking of Cincinnati, they're beating Wichita State and their Houston next opponent, and they got a great young coach in Wes Miller who won a national championship at North Carolina. And this team has a lot of experience with the Julius, who Houston fans should be used to seeing. And
Mhm.
Davenport came back, and they got Houston transfer Nolly, who came over, who could shoot the three and really gave Houston some fit. So that's going to be a tough game. Looking forward to Houston's next opponent, and I can't wait to that matchup. He's going to have to show up on the road to a Cincinnati team who's really going to be looking to knock Houston off, of course, like everyone is.
And great point, because I forgot to touch on it earlier, but a couple of things. When the Cougs played in Cincinnati last year, I was beat down. Wes Miller was, he was, how could I phrase it? He was disappointed in the performance. Yeah,
Really did.
you
Did
know,
you
and
grow up?
I don't think he got thrown out, but he was frustrated because Houston,
Mhm.
they dominated the Bearcats. The
Mm.
fans were hyped. They pumped it up. They were hyped it up, and the Cougs won by like 20 points. And Wes Miller, he was frustrated and disappointed in the performance and the outcome. And he said, well, basically, Houston is where we are, where we want to be. Okay. But
Yeah.
tonight they kicked our behinds. Basically, that's what he said. But you make a great point about Cincinnati and experience against the Cougs. We've seen it. We saw a very different outcome because SMU, what's his name? Jalen Smith, young man, backcourt made for SMU. Really his first
Yeah.
time going against Cougs defense. We've said it a few times on this show. If you have never experienced facing the Cougs before, your first time facing Houston's defense, it's a whole nother level that you're not used to. But once you get accustomed to it a couple times, like the Bearcats, like Landers Nolly, David DeJulius, he seemed like he's 35 years old, man, because I swear he's been in the conference forever. But he's used to going against Houston. So it should be a good matchup. The fans, I'm assuming, some students will be there for the game. Still winter break for most of the college kids. But they will, I'm pretty sure Coach Miller has said, remember last year's performance. Remember what they did to us in this building. That cannot happen again. So he's going to motivate the guys and get them all hyped up. So it'll be a definite road game in the conference play. Against experienced teams are tough.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna be curious looking ahead, like you mentioned. And again, this is something that we from the outside and a lot of fans are gonna pay attention to. But Cincinnati, really, they're the only thing standing between Houston and in all likelihood, reclaiming the number one overall spot in the Associated Press poll, which, Chris, we talked about in the past whenever the Houston Cougars initially got that number one spot. It doesn't matter right now. It's a cool to have. It's cool for fans. But at the end of the day, what's going to matter is that final poll come the first week after the first Monday in April. But still, to have that opportunity, to add on to your point, that the Bearcats, not only are they going to hype it up, I know they have a specific team for that game. I can't remember what exactly it's going to be, but the crowd's going to be pumped. They're going to be hyping up the game. They've probably done it for the past week. So the Bearcats are going to be ready. Like you said, they're going to use motivation from last year's game. They're the only team standing between Houston and that number one seed in the press polls. It's going to be another street fight, just like it was a week ago against UCF.
It,
But I think that catches Houston at a time where Houston is peaking. We're really, really peaking right now, especially with the way the ball's moving. Everyone is aware that you can get off without playing one-on-one basketball. That's the main thing that's really sticking out to me of recent. In any given game, you think about Tremont, like the point I made earlier, all the shots that he got when he went off in the first half in the last game, all that was within the offense. He pretty much gets those touches every game. You look at tonight,
Mhm.
Jarris went off. He pretty much gets the same touches, the same shots, looks every game. And so on any given night, when you guys have at least 4 or 5 players that can beat you offensively, that makes you hard to play for. I mean, to scheme for. And then when they're moving the ball the way that they are, it's not so much isolation. I think Houston is really, really peaking well, and the defense is better. The rebounding is better because I think Francis is playing more minutes. And I think Cincinnati, it's going to be a tough one. I can't wait to see it, but I foresee Houston going on a winning streak, continuing their winning streak, as I should say. I think they won 6 straight.
and I just noticed on the Bearcats website, they want fans, encouraging fans to wear black for Sunday's
Mhm.
game against the Cougs. So they're looking forward to it. And the Bearcats are ahead of Wichita by 13. 68-55. So it's a quick turnaround for both teams. Cougs are traveling, going to leave for Cincinnati on Saturday morning. Get ready for the game on Sunday afternoon on ESPN, I think at 2 p.m. our time. So it'll be a good indication to see which Jarris Walker shows up. Will it be the great one or the very good one like he did tonight against SMU, or the one that we've seen a few times this season? Jarris, don't think too much. Jarris, just let it go, man. Just be aggressive. Be decisive, as Dayon says. Be decisive in your moves. If it's that Jarris, he's one of the best freshmen in the country, let alone in the AAC. So if it's that Jarris, he's a matchup nightmare for anybody in this conference.
I wonder will Coach Sampson draw something early for him to give him a look. 'Cause once he got that dunk to go down and it was so emphatic, the way he kind of hyped up everybody, I feel like that juiced him up even more. But outside of that, I don't feel like Coach Sampson ran anything just differently to get him the ball. It was all within the offense of what he normally gets. So I'm interested to see will Coach Sampson try to go to him early just to get him off to a good start and get him settling into the game and get him a rhythm. To see because they're going to need him on the road against a very experienced team, a hungry team.
And it'll be kind of curious, kind of good to see if he becomes like a road warrior, because he put on the show in Virginia. So if he becomes that kind of guy that just gets it done in road games.
Another point, our freshmen, now that you say that, have been road warriors.
Yeah.
Terrence is a road warrior in Oregon. Like you just mentioned, Jared was a road warrior in Virginia. And so our freshmen have been road warriors. I wonder will they continue? That's a great point.
And I think it's part of the culture that's been established by previous Cougs on previous teams, because once this program started getting good/great, they got big time wins on the road. They went into arenas and silenced the crowd, because as an athlete, a true competitor, there's not much better than shutting up a crowd, going into their place and doing that. Shh. And what can they say?
One of the key turning points for me, just thinking about that, was when Houston was playing at TSU, and I don't know if Arkansas was ranked at the time. It might have been ranked. Houston beat them, and everyone stormed the court. And now sitting back thinking about that, I don't think they were like highly ranked. People were just ecstatic to be competing and beating the SEC, a Power 5 team. Fast forward to now, where people expect Houston to beat anyone, and so that's kind of random. But I was just thinking about this.
No, that's a great point. That's something that Kelvin Sampson touched on during his radio show. He said they've come a long way when now people can complain. I'm gonna keep it the PG version for the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. But they've come a long way when people can complain about how they win, which has been something that they did even going back to early in the season when they pulled out the victory against Kent State, and then obviously this latest win against UCF.
Yeah,
you could say it. I think correct me if I'm wrong. You can say bitching on the channel. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
I've heard him say that before.
That is exactly what he said.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he said.
But there's some of the numbers from the game. Cougs had 17 assists on 31 buckets, and they missed 37 shots, okay? But they got 21 offensive rebounds. So they rebounded more than half of their misses. So that's a stat that the staff really likes to get, is if you rebound more than half your own misses, chances are you're going to win the ball game, okay? And they won by 34 points. But 38 points in the paint, 38-24 in the paint, 35-6 in second chance points. So even they shot close to 50% overall, and they still had 35-6 in second chance points. So their 21 boards, they had 35 points. Another winning sign right there. And you and I kind of negative a little bit. They only had 10 fast break points. So they didn't play fast a lot or fast enough, but they were clearly the better team, more talented team than SMU. And let me also say this, Coach said it, and even colleague Joseph Duarte mentioned it as well. Zach Nuttall, one of the key players for the Mustangs, is injured, coming off an injury or still dealing with an injury. So we're not sure. He's not close to 100%. So he struggled health-wise as well as a Cougs great defense. So on the rematch in Dallas, if not all is healthy, we might see a better version of Zach not all in that game. But tonight, he just didn't have it. 3 for 8 from the floor. Zurich Phelps, 2 for 11. That's going to do well against Cougs guards. You're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that it's been a common theme throughout the season. It's interesting. UCF, their guards, they came in here, they gave Houston a lot of fits. Obviously, Alabama, with what they were able to do in spreading out the Cougars and being able to attack them off the dribble, they gave Houston fits. Even going back to Kent State, that is an interesting trend. You look, like you said, Chris, that teams that have given the Houston Cougars problems this season, they've had stellar play from their guards, and that's going to be an interesting trend going forward, especially once they get into not only later in March into the NCAA tournament. That's going to be interesting to see how when Houston continues to see those higher end guards, how they continue to improve throughout the season. Now, Chris, I'm gonna toss it over to you. I believe we have one final read before we start to wrap things up.
No doubt going to give a shout out and a thanks to Houston HOU NIL one more time. Big thanks to Ryan and the crew over there. As the Cougars move to the Big 12, Houston will be competing with national players in basketball like Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, and more. Those schools have fans that have built huge NIL groups to get their athletes' name, image, and likeness compensation. That gives them a huge advantage over UH, where NIL is still in its infancy. But you guys can help Cougar athletes by getting involved. Go to hounil.com to subscribe to player-created content like essays, videos, podcasts, and get access to private events with UH players. Players are compensated for creating content, and fans get an inside look at their lives. Plans start at $20 a month. $20 a month. Plans start at $20 a month. That money helps the Cougars retain players to stay at the top in basketball and to build momentum in football. hounil.com. Subscribers get one-of-a-kind content straight from Cougar athletes. Subscribe today. hounil.com. And of course, go Cougs.
I like the double emphasis on $20 a month. When you look at it, that could be 5 different cups of coffee throughout the month. So it's a really really good deal for each of you. And I was chuckling a little bit when you mentioned a shout out to Ryan. Obviously, I wasn't able to be in attendance for today's game between Houston and SMU at Fertitta Center. And Ryan Monso sent me a photo where I sit right next to Ryan Monso in the press section they have at the Fertitta Center. And it has my name. It says Gallery Sports, and he covered my name and he said reserved for GoCougs.com, which made me chuckle. So big shout out to Ryan Monceau, and I hope he doesn't get too comfortable having that seat next to him, because I'll be back next week when they play USF in the Fertitta Center. But obviously, a big shout out. Now, in all seriousness, a big shout out to Ryan Monceau, not only with GoCougs.com, but HOUNIL, and then what he's doing with the athletes, allowing them, giving them a platform to be able to create stories that the athletes themselves really want to not only tell, but showcase kind of a behind the scenes into their lives. And of course, our other sponsors for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, who they are known for the entity behind those Star Pizza commercials, which, like I said before, could have a new Star Pizza commercial with a few men's basketball players in the near future. And of course, they just unveiled a new shirt design that it will be given away tomorrow, Friday, January 6th. January 6th, that we're recording this on Thursday, January 5th. It'll unveil January 6th. Be sure to follow them on Twitter, Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective. And our third sponsor for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family, is Star Pizza. Be sure to check out their website at starpizza.net. Not only can you check out their menu and location, phone numbers, all the information across the various locations in the Houston area, but of course you can also order online and pick up your pizza ahead of time. So be sure to pay them a visit at starpizza.net. Chris, I'm gonna ask you a question. How was the crowd like when it came to the Fertitta Center today against SMU?
It was very good. It was a very good crowd. Early start. I got here late because of traffic and stuff. And, stuff happens. I got here later than I'd hoped. But it was a good crowd for a 6 p.m. start on a Thursday night here in H-Town. Fans, they're getting, and students still on break, a lot of them. It was a very good crowd. And I guess I can say a little bit, UH is becoming a basketball school. And they came to see the opponent. They came to see not the opponent, they came to see the Cougs. So that's great to see. And we'll see how they look at the next Wednesday, I think, against South Florida. But of course, Cougs' next game is going to be Sunday against the Bearcats in Cincinnati. But yes, I want to say this comment from a tweet from Joseph Hoyt, who covers SMU for his beat writer for the Mustangs in Dallas. And his tweet is, Houston's Jarris Walker is going to be a problem. That was right after the end of the game. And of course, Jarris put up 23 and 10. And it was one of Jarris' best games of the season. So if Jarris Walker has more games like this, the Cougs will be a tough out come tournament time.
Absolutely, Chris. Real quickly, going back to your point in regards to the crowd, yeah, that's something that stood out to me just at the beginning of the year when they played. Beginning of this year, it kind of sounds like I'm going back to the beginning of the season. Beginning of 2023, when they played against Central Florida, and same thing. I was impressed with the crowd that showed up against the Knights. Now, obviously, they were trending uptick, but they don't necessarily carry that same buzz that Alabama did a few weeks ago. And the crowd showed up for that game, and it was a crazy atmosphere. Once again, that the players and coach Calvin Sampson shouted out after the game just for how phenomenal that was and how really it helped uplift them towards that victory and being able to stave off the Knights from their rally late. So, like you said, it's a shift in mentality, and really it's going back to what we mentioned earlier, just an expectation that has now set in with the Houston Cougars men's basketball program, which is exciting, and that's exactly what you want to see now that you're less than 7 months away from officially joining the Big 12.
July 1st. Yep, July 1st. Looking forward to that great day. But Jarris Walker, first shot was an air ball three-pointer. Next, a dunk. Then 2 jumpers. Another jumper. Then made a three-pointer. So he made the next 5 shots. Oh, no, he's not done. Another jumper. Another three-pointer. So he was rolling. And then at one point, late in the first half, about the 4-minute mark, he made another jumper to give him 18 points. The Mustangs had 17 points. So 4 minutes to go in the first half. Jarris Walker 18, SMU 17. The Cougs were at that point up 42-17. SMU was just struggling to make shots. So the Cougs defense led to their offense, which is just an added plus for Houston because the defense is constant. I think it's another game. Honestly, SMU's 53 points, I think, is above Houston's defensive points allowed per game because around 49.
Hovers around. Yeah, they hover around. At one point, it was under 50. It's just absurd how crazy, how phenomenal they have been defensively. But that's become the identity. That's been the identity for every year since I've covered Houston. And the defense has always been a step ahead of the offense. But now they're getting to a point. I'm not entirely sure what this Houston Cougars team is, how many points they score offensively per game. But I remember initially, on average, the wins would be 60 into the middle of the 60s towards 50 for their opponents, and that's slowly, gradually gone up over the years in regards to the offense, which, again, it's just another show of the progress that the program has taken the last few years.
And ask Dan, get your thoughts on this. Jarris Walker, 4 offensive rebounds. Javier Francis, 4 offensive rebounds. Terrence Arsenault, also 4 boards. And Terrence got those boards coming off the bench in roughly 19 minutes of action. So Terrence crashed the boards. What are your thoughts on Terrence hitting the boards?
Yeah, really no surprise. I think a part of playing well in practice includes making those culture plays, those effort plays, rebounding, as well as showing what you can do offensively. And so it was to no surprise. He's shown early in the season with his activity and his length and ability that he can go out and get those rebounds. And so he really went out and competed well tonight. I think the way he went out and grabbed those boards just really just showing what he can do. I think whenever his time comes, he's going to be one of those guards that average around 7 to 8 rebounds per game, along with however many points he'll average. So no surprise there.
So it's just a key of these guys being consistent. Arsenault, Sharp, all the players. You get to a level of Marcus Sasser, you expect Marcus, you count on Marcus to give you 15-4 or 16 or whatever, and then close it, as Dan likes to refer to, be the closer if they'd be down the stretch. Was not needed today. This game was over at the 10-minute mark of the first half. But for Jarris to be consistent, Terrence to be consistent, Emmanuel to be consistent, this team has weapons. It's just young, and they're developing. So it's January. Andy, you know it. Dan, you know it. Coach Sampson says, get better November to December, December to January, January to February, February to March, and be playing their best ball come tournament time. I think they're well on their way.
Which is the most exciting thing about this team because of the potential that they have. They're able to get, the way Kelvin, the analogy he used this past week, it's like trying to get all the satellites to get on the same page, which is going to be a season-long process. And if they are able to get that, like you mentioned, come tournament time, it's going to be some exciting things in regards to this Houston Cougars basketball team.
And I want to toss this out to everybody. We're talking bracketology kind of things. I think Lenardi, I don't know if he's posted his update tonight. If not tonight, it'll be tomorrow. But there's one bracket person who has the Cougs as a number 1 seed. Most, I think, bracketologists have Cougs as a 2 seed. I'm putting on my alumni hat. I just don't want the Cougs to be in the same region as Kansas if Kansas is in Kansas City. Okay, so, and if Kansas is Kansas City, that's probably they're going to be the number 1 seed overall. And for Kansas not to be number 1 seed overall, they probably have to lose probably 3 times at least in the Big 12. Dan, do you think Kansas could lose 3 times in the Big 12?
I think it's highly possible, honestly.
3 times? I think 2. I don't know about 3.
Yeah, I think this year, I think it's possible. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it's possible. I watched them play
Well, I love to
last
see
night.
it.
Yeah. I think they can. I think they can still win the Big 12, but I also think they can lose that amount of games because you got the TCU is tough. You got Baylor is tough. You got Iowa State is tough. You got any of these teams on the road, like you mentioned, it's a
Texas.
gauntlet on the road. You're gonna have to compete. Texas on the road. Kansas State, who blew out Texas the other day. Any of these teams, you're gonna have to compete on the road. So they've been running the Big 12, but this year they're kind of, I don't want to say rebuilding, they're refocusing and rebuilding these teams' chemistry just like everyone else. And so it could happen.
And boy, I tell you that Kansas State matchups, those 2 matchups, that state Coach Jerome Tang has done a great job in his first season, his first few months in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. Those 2 matchups should be something else. But we're talking about Big 12. We're getting ahead of ourselves because the Cougs are still in the American for a few more months. And the Cougs face Cincinnati Sunday afternoon in Cincinnati in the, Fifth Third Arena.
Correct.
2 p.m. on ESPN. I think Mark Adams is one of the guys calling that game on Sunday. And Mark Adams, he beats the drum for the American. He's like the Fran Fraschilla of Fran in the Big 12. Mark Adams does that for the American. Looking forward to the game. Any keys in your guys' eyes for the Cougs to win Sunday in Cincinnati?
I'll go first, and Chris, I'm gonna kind of steal one that you had earlier, but again, going back to teams that have been able to have success against the Cougars, especially when it comes to guard play and just overall veteran players, it's going to be interesting to see how and Houston has a little bit of experience, especially just going back to when the win they were able to get on the road in Virginia, but how especially the freshmen, the younger players, Javier Francis, you can lump him in there in regards to younger players, how they react to the hostile environment, but then also how well the Cougars are able to defend Cincinnati and really how they kind of react to the Cougars defense and just overall with how experienced they are.
Let me ask you, Dayon. We'll put Jaja's question up, a statement up. It's the American. Last few months for the Cougs in the American. Would the Cougs, and I don't think it's going to happen, I think the Cougs will win Sunday in Cincinnati. Other than Memphis, in the eyes of everybody outside of the American, wouldn't any other loss to a team that's not Memphis be considered a bad loss?
I think it has to be how they finish the season. Because you look at a team like Tulane, who just beat Memphis but lost their conference opener. If they finish conference with maybe two or three conference losses, then they may gain more respect from outsiders. And so Memphis got has their respect, but you teams like that, like Cincinnati, I mean, if they lose maybe two or three games and gain that respect throughout conference and maybe split with Memphis, but lose twice to Houston, I mean, I don't. It could be a possibility. That's a good question, but I think it really depends on how the season ends for those teams and how they play throughout conference. I think they have to have a steady, good conference wins to prove that they are one of the quality teams in the conference.
What do you say, Andy? What do you think?
No, I absolutely agree. It all depends on just really how, I guess, dominant would be a word to describe it. How, or I guess a better way to describe it is how UCF, Cincinnati, and Memphis. I think those are the three clear-cut teams that are. I think obviously it's Houston, and then there's a line, and then it's those three teams when it comes to the next that are the best in the conference. And absolutely,
Yeah, I was gonna say
you
I
could
put
you
Tulane
could
in there
miss.
too.
Yeah, you could definitely put Tulane in there as well. But just in regards to those four schools specifically, they can't have those bad losses, which it's difficult, especially when it's a road game. There's nothing that's guaranteed. But from an outside perspective, from a national perspective, if UCF, Cincinnati, Tulane, any of those teams, Memphis, they lose to Temple. One of these teams lost to Temple. They lose to Temple. They lose to East
Cincinnati lost to
Carolina.
Temple. Cincinnati did, and they're
Yeah,
car.
which losses like that they did begin to add up, and if they end up with 4 or 5 conference losses, then it's like, oh well, even if they'll get up for Houston and they lose on the road, say like Houston loses on the road to Cincinnati or later down the season at UCF, and of course Memphis, those games are always um, in a special category of their own. Then it could hurt them. I could see that being kind of the barrier to the Houston Cougars finishing a number 1 seed, but outside of that, I think yeah, I agree with Dayon. Those four schools have to be able to separate themselves from the rest of the pack in the American.
And I think I know the answer to this from you guys, but do you believe the Cougs will finish the conference undefeated?
No, I'll say
No,
no
Agreed.
because
Agreed.
they play again, like I mentioned, have to play at Cincinnati, they have to play at UCF, at SMU, at Memphis. Those are going to be tough opponents, and then obviously at New Orleans they play at Tulane as well. So I think one of those, you'd expect them to fall just in terms of can be in that human nature. But if they've somehow finished 18-0, that would be an impressive feat.
It would. I think they're going to lose it. One conference game, at least one.
it could be to any team. It could
Yeah.
be to a Temple team who got explosive guards that just go off. And so, like in the past, where you lost to teams like Tulsa, it's like so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Agreed. I don't. And I just put it out there because of the narrative that will happen nationally. Well, how good is Houston then? They can't even go undefeated in the American. Blah blah
Hmm.
blah. Because those folks don't realize how good the teams are in the American. So it's okay. The Cougs are going to the NCAA tournament. And I go back to the beginning of Coach Sampson when he got to Houston. Who would have thought the turnaround that he's made in 9 years, making this program a nationally relevant program from where they were beforehand in the dark ages of Houston Cougars men's basketball before he got here. And now, Andy, back to your point about what Coach said, people are bitching about, well, y'all only won by 20.
Yeah,
Y'all only won by 15. What's wrong with y'all? What's wrong? That's how the transformation has been remarkable. This transformation has been for this program in 9 years. Wrap it up, Dan.
absolutely.
Wrap it up, Andy.
Yes, sir. Dan, and I'll give you the floor. Where can people find you on social media, and any final takeaways you'd like to add?
Find me on all social media platforms at Dayon Dunlap. I like to add congratulations to the women's going 2-0 to start conference play. They got a win against Tulane tonight, so they started conference play undefeated as well. Got to show them some love. Also, shout out to all the good news out there. Founders Day for Kappa Alpha Psi, the greater fraternity known to man. But I'm just loving to continue to see this Houston team gel more and more and get more and more confidence playing together, more chemistry. I think going against Cincinnati, I want to see Tremont continue to play well because I believe in his entire career at Houston, when he's played and scored over 10 points, Houston's undefeated or lost only one game. And so I think if he's one of the X factors I'm going to keep my eye on. I hope he comes out and has another great game against Cincinnati.
That's an interesting point, Dan. I'd forgotten about that. That I think John Rothstein had been. Well, I think I'd seen him tweet it out a few days ago. But that's a great point in regards to Tremont Mark and him being an X factor. People can follow me on Twitter at ayanez_5. But mainly, I just want to say once again, thank you to both of you guys, Chris and Dayon, for being able to hop on and carry the beginning of the show and really carry the whole show, to be honest, in regards to this episode of Let's Rage Coogs following number 2 Houston's victory over SMU. I'm truly, truly appreciative and grateful. And you guys are the best. I couldn't ask for better partners on this Let's Rage Coogs journey.
My pleasure, Andy. Thanks very much. And I want to say I'm going to fall on the sword. Technology got me a little bit because I was hoping to upload part of Coach's comments about Terrence Arsenault and Malik Wilson's defense, but something happened and I wasn't able to do it for the show. But hopefully, I'm assuming everything is now uploaded on the UH YouTube channel, so you can catch Coach Sampson's entire post-game conference and listen to the comments there. I'm going to try to post a clip on this channel on my YouTube channel as well, Houston Lombard View. But big win for the Cougs, good win for the Cougs, 87-53 over SMU, over a young SMU team, a rebuilding SMU program. Keep that in perspective as well. But the Cougs did the job. Jarris Walker put on his skill set on display this evening. 23 points, 10 boards, 3 assists. We'll see if that Jarris Walker shows up this Sunday afternoon in Cincinnati against the Bearcats, 2 p.m. on ESPN. So thanks once again. We're going to do another Let's Rage Cougs and bring everybody in on this one. Another Let's Rage Cougs Sunday after the game against Cincinnati.
Yes, sir.
I think it's safe to say that we are beginning. We're moving along in the process of getting some merch, some T-shirts, some Let's Rage Cougs T-shirts for the fans to get. So the process is beginning. So Flame, Jaja, everybody watching us on YouTube, start saving some money, put some coins aside, have a Let's Rage Cougs fund, going forward, so you can get your merch ready for you guys and support us going forward as we continue to provide these shows. And Andy and Dan, we all agreed on it. We're going to do some pregame shows as well for the Cougs on the road for conference play. So, as always, onward and upward.
And in the show, with our Go Cougs.
Yes, sir. Everybody take care. Peace.